Finally, this fucking bitch shows up.
Yeah, what's good, brother? Yo, unmute yourself.
Oh, you got me?
I got you, bro.
Dude, I was getting frustrated right now. I was like, this is crazy.
Nah, it's okay, bro. We were waiting for you to hop in, just chatting a little bit. But yeah, the conversation is getting good already, so we definitely don't want you to miss out.
Nah, I got my trust in Leo. I was like, I know Leo's taking care of business right now.
Yeah, bro. Absolute pleasure to have like the both of you guys on again. I think like we just got to keep this going because it's always good energy. You guys kill it all the time. Just like setting standards and executing on standards is like for me become a very important thing. Uh, yeah, just good energy. How you
Well, yeah,
been?
I mean, that's the biggest thing, bro. You said it. It's like you got to execute on those standards. And I mean, that's what this is all really about, right? Like we all have goals. We all see what we need to do. Like humans aren't stupid.
Yeah,
Humans know what needs to be done. And really it just comes down to application. Like we don't have a knowledge issue around here in today's day. Like we're in the digital age. All the answers are out there. All the podcasts are out there. Dude, you have people making millions in the online space just giving out answers like free master classes, free this, free that. And so really it just comes down to application. It's observation and application.
Hey, we were literally just talking about that.
I was gonna say.
We were talking about like health and just like overall caring for your own health. And I was like, I was like, so Darren, like, what do you think it is? No one wants to be uncomfortable in their skin. People feel uncomfortable in their skin. People want to just be more confident. Like no one wants to be someone that's just like oozing out insecurity. Like no one wants that, right?
You could feel that too, you know.
Yeah. And it's like, and so I asked Darren, I was like, so what is it then? And we both came down to excuses and just people not wanting to do the work. Like, and Darren mentioned it. He was like, yeah, of course, like you got jobs, you got your own lifestyle, like family life. Like there's a lot of variables in someone's life, right? But just squeezing in an hour to prioritize your health, like it's just prioritizing the work, like loving the work, enjoying the process, the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows. Like it's just can you do that? And then you'll be more confident. You'll be more comfortable in your own skin. And I think people really just don't want to do the work. Like it takes work. It takes time too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think like I ultimately there's like a level of apathy in people that don't put in the work and they just get used to it. They get used to that like and I was saying before like homeostasis of this baseline that they just don't want to they don't even maybe they haven't even comprehended or experienced like the alternative states that you could be in every day if you just show up for yourself, if you're getting after it in the gym, if you are executing on your work, like living your highest vibration. I know you wanted to talk about that, and we can get into that as well. What that even means to each person might be different, but yeah, ultimately, I just think that people they're not taking the time out of their day to maybe love themselves better than they already are, you know?
Yeah, because I'd argue as humans, we're naturally at a negative state, right? Like you think about how much we question whether we're good enough, how much we question whether what we're doing is enough, how much we seek acceptance. And so really it just comes down to, like Leo said, like, are we willing to do the work? And not only that, are we willing to do it long enough? Are we willing to live it and be it through and through for a lengthy period of time where it's like you look back and I remember our call earlier this year, I was like, man, I'm stoked for this year. Like
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot that's going to happen this year and I'm stoked for it. And looking back, I'm glad that I did in that work for 365 days out of this year, bro. Like I really did it over and over and over. And there was moments where it's like, I mean, what's the point of this? Like you always have those questions. And so that's why I say like humans are naturally at a negative state because you wake up and you have these doubts, these insecurities, these flaws. And so it's our job as humans to find a way to work out of it, to get into positive thinking, to get into a frame of mind where we're like, okay, like my goals are possible. Like everything that I wanted to do as a kid, it's possible. Because as we get older, we question ourselves more and we start to compare ourselves. And in therapy, I've learned that, right? Like I moved here to Miami and you look around and it's intimidating. It's intimidating, and you start to question yourself naturally. You start to compare yourself, and then you see all of your flaws. And
Yeah.
so it's constantly, day by day, moment by moment, I'm working to make sure that I'm building myself up, that I'm improving my self-image, that I'm improving my confidence. But it's through the work. More work, more worth.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an interesting point that you brought up, like the machine that some of these cities are in terms of comparing yourself with people that might be way more successful than you and might have a better appearance than you, or this, that, or whatever, some type of desired goal that you want to achieve that they may have. How you have to convince yourself that it's not a question of me versus you, it's me versus me, end of the day, and how I cannot be an insecure person in that process. It's difficult, man. I mean, like, I grew up in LA. I know you guys grew up in LA. That whole city is a machine is as well. So like being able to not fall or succumb to the reality that often people do, which is comparison of one another. And like that insecurity is tough for people to break. I guess like what I wanted to ask from you guys right out the gates is like, how have you been able to manage your insecurity better? Because everyone is insecure to some degree.
Yeah, I think for me, like on this topic, like when I pull up to Miami next year, like once I graduate, I'm gonna study for the bar, and then around August, I'm gonna go to Miami. And I'll probably have the same thoughts as Brandon. Like there's like high rollers there, you know? And Oregon's pretty low key. Like no one's really into that lifestyle in Oregon. Obviously, depending in the area you're in, but like I'm thinking about that. It's like it's on my mind, you know? And all I could really think about is that's someone's chapter 24. I'm on chapter 4. My pops barely came to the States. Like he came with nothing on his back. My grandpa came, like my grandpa was eating rats in Mexico. I put this on my story one time. Like he was so poor, he had a slingshot. He would kill rats and then eat them. Like he was that poor, you know? And so like I think when I think about going to Miami, I think about like what chapter am I in? Like my family just came to the States. I don't know what chapter they're in. Maybe they did go 0 to 100 in one chapter. I don't know, but that's the reality is I don't know and I can't assume, you know. And all I could really think is like, yeah, it's me, it's Leo versus Leo, but that's a good standard. If I want that, if I'm attracted to that, that's a good standard to have. Like one day I will be that, you know, and just continuously work, learn how they did it if I want to do what they do, see how they did it if I'm interested in that lifestyle, and just mimic their voice, and then I create my own. Like through that process, I'll create my own and then just serve as proof to other people. Like I really believe, dude, I really believe people should see their life and think, I'm gonna serve as a beacon of hope for someone that's just like me. Like there's a little Darren out there, and I want to make sure he realizes through my own example, through what I embody, that it's possible. Whatever little Darren's interested, but he's gonna know through me that it's possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and through that, it's like you think about the struggle, right? Like the struggle that we experience. The struggle will serve you if you let it. I think about my childhood, I think about my upbringing, the stuff that I've gone through as a kid that it serves as a trophy on my back. Nobody could take my childhood away from me. People can take money away from me. People could take any assets that I own away from me, but nobody could take everything that I've overcome away from me. And I use that to validate myself. And I use my character, my conduct, the way I treat people, the love that I give, the respect that I give, the way that I carry myself to validate me. That's how I overcome insecurities. And that's how everybody can overcome insecurities, right? Like, I don't have mom's money. I don't have dad's money. I'm in Miami. I look around, and it's evident that I'm in a different chapter than that they're in.
Yeah.
But I know that character is revealed when pressure is applied. And so when I feel this pressure, I feel this pressure from my surroundings, from my environment, from the people around me, and see that, hey, man, they're chapters ahead of me. I have to remember that in this moment, I can validate myself through my character, my conduct, and the way I treat people. And at our core, all we really do seek is acceptance. And so through that, through the way I treat people, I know I can validate myself off of that. And so I think at the end, it's just the work, like more work, more worth. And some days are harder than others, but I know at the end of whatever it is that I go through, I'm going to have a trophy on that case where nobody can take that away from me. Nobody. And so that's how you just inch by inch, chapter by chapter, you get older and older through experiences. You start to gain that confidence just by enduring. Just by enduring, you can gain the confidence that nobody can take away from you.
I love that, man. I love that. I think at least for myself, I can relate with both of you guys on that, where it's the constant reflection of maybe the struggles that I've been through, the progress that I've made, the situations that I've put myself in, the forced growth, right? Intentional discomfort in order to, be able to not succumb to what ultimately most people will succumb to, which is their insecurities. So I show up for myself every day. I get in the gym. I execute at work. I make sure that all the things that could potentially lead to problems of my self perception, it's not hurting me. It's not like knives hitting me. In fact, like I'm just building armor on top of myself. So that way, when, you know, I do encounter situations, days that I'm not feeling great, I just, as all of us will, life has thrown me some knives and life has stabbed me quite a bit, and I've been able to sew up the wounds, and I've sewed it up and created a shield on top of it, not in like, not like a negative compartmentalization of my emotional like state, more of I've built myself up, and being able to build yourself up constantly, I think it's really important. And it's evident when you run into people that maybe are in a different season, and that's perfectly okay. I ran into a guy at my work, one of my employees. He comes to me and he's like, yo, I'm really sorry. Like I've been leaving early lately. First off, he's allowed to leave early. He has hours he can use in order to do that. He doesn't need to tell me. But I appreciate that he came to me, and I won't mention his name, but he then tells me, like I've just been feeling really bad about myself. I'm kind of known as the guy, at Amazon, like the ugly dude. And I'm like, what? Like the dude has a fresh ass fade. Like if I if I just got blessed like that, I'd be kissing my barber, like no way, right? I was like, nah, bro, like there's no way. And then he's like, yeah, but my dad's like, he's on dialysis and like all these. And I was like, oh, okay, so it's deeper, it's a deeper issue. And then you have these deeper traumas, and then on top of it, you have like life's little darts that are being thrown at you, and those deeper traumas open up the wound to like let the darts hit you, and so I made sure to like, try and give him some good energy and like say like, I appreciate you, if you need anything, come to me. I'll be happy to talk with you about it. But ultimately there's only so much I can do as uh as like a perceiver onto someone else. I can maybe help in that process, but he's gonna have to do the work. He's gonna have to show up for himself. So that way, maybe that I like that comment of what's little Darren looking for, right? What is the little version of that guy looking at him, realizing in that moment, he's gonna need to show up better for the little version of himself, and he will if he puts the work in.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point, bro, because not just little Darren, but it's like your loved ones that are currently here, It's like his pops that's on dialysis. Like what can he do for his pops? Like, it's again, we're human, we're not robots. We're not always going to be on point. We're not always going to be feeling 100. That's a lie. Like anyone who says they're always feeling good, it's a lie, or they're just not sharing it. I really believe it's one or the other. But this past year since my grandpa passed, I've been thinking about that. Like, what am I doing for my gramps? Like, I say I miss him. I say, dang, I wish he was still here. But what am I really doing so he can see me from up above and be like, dang, hey, Leo's still the same. He's still grinding. He's still winning.
Yeah.
He's still feeling what he's got to feel, but he keeps on going, And I really, Brandon and I have been talking about that, basically since like my grandpa passed, just thinking like, what about the loved ones that haven't gone yet? What are you doing for them? Like, how are you living for them? But I think it's like what you're saying with your coworker, and I think it's solid, bro. Like you're on point with that.
Yeah, I think it's also always important to consider that people are hurting. In today's age, in the digital age, it's hard to see people are hurting just because everybody's just posting their wins, right? Like online on social media, you only see the wins, you only see the acceptance letters, you only see the new job, you only see the nice views. And so that's why Leo and I try to always be vulnerable on our online space, just because, like, while it is hard for us, while we do have moments of hesitation or doubt whether it's appropriate or not, we know that our vulnerability is not only strength, but serves as a beacon of hope for someone that's struggling. Because if Leo didn't do it and I had nobody else on my feet doing it, I would wonder, like, is something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with me for feeling the way that I do? And so when I see Leo's story, I'm like, no, I'm human. Leo's human. And so that's our intention every single day when we wake up. We look above, we report above, and ask our God, like, how can I prove today that I'm grateful for this life? Through vulnerability, through treating others with respect and love. And not only that, bro, like our ancestors, the people that came before us, like Leo said, we want Gramps to look down on us and say, those twins, man, every day they prove to me that they really do love and miss me. Those twins, man, I knew it before that I went that they wouldn't stop. And same for you, Darren, like for your sister. Like,
Yeah.
she passed away. She looks down on Darren. It's like, man, that dude's killing it. That dude is still killing it. Before I went, I knew he was gonna kill it, and he really is. And so that's for anybody that's struggling to live with the lost one, with the loved one. You know, it's like, you think about that. Like, instead of feeling sorry for ourselves, while those feelings are normal, and while we should normalize those feelings, remember at the end of the day, once that moment is over, we have to get to work. We have to get to work to prove to our loved one every single day that we do really love and miss them.
Yeah, I think first off, my condolences. I know we've spoken about your grandfather in the past, but death is for me a big part of my life. It's become a big part of my life for better or worse. I like to look at it as for better argument, because without it, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. I don't know what my life would look like if my sister hadn't passed away. It would be maybe a very different Darren, maybe a more oblivious Darren, a more innocent Darren that might succumb to different problems in life, different woes as a result. I'm grateful for the experience, as traumatic as it was. And we can get into that too. But yeah, I think showing up for yourself, it's become an absolute like the necessity for me, because of the death, because I'm like constantly aware of the fact that, you know, it affects me on every day, any given day, and it'll just show up out of the blue. The holiday seasons can be tough on anyone who's been through a loss, but at the same time, I've moved across the country by myself, been grinding, getting after it with practically no help, because for me, I've already like lost a loved one, you know? It's taught me the ability to be able to disconnect from an environment in order to see potential in a future that I may not have right now. And I think like my sister looks down on me on that and sees me, continuing that pursuit. That pursuit is ongoing. Even when she was here, I'm sure she, saw me getting after it in my career, my sporting endeavors, whatnot. But now it's just a different hustle, like I need to get after it. I need to be the version of myself that maybe down the road someone asks me like, "Oh, why are you so successful?" And it's probably because of her, you know. And I've noticed a lot of very successful people all have a story. They all have something, like some foundation that was built out of a very traumatic experience or a very, you know, dually hardship. Even your grandfather, that's a hardship. To be able to get out of that, to, by the way, that slingshot, that's talent right there, by the way. That's talent. so so being able to get out of that and produce grandsons like yourself, that's the victory, long term. That's the victory. And then for you guys to continue that pursuit is, I think that's the human experience in itself. It's not about us, it's about the future. It's about the message you leave on to people, as tough as it can be, so I'm grateful for it, man. I'm grateful. It's tough to talk about, but at the same time, like, it's a blessing.
Dude, I mean, you said it. You said it. You said it. You said, she saw me before she went. and she knew who I was. Like she knew you were going to do it. And there's something that I really appreciate that, gives me a lot of peace is one time my grandma told me, she was like, before your grandpa went, he said that I don't worry about the twins. Like they're going to be fine. They have the right mentality.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, like every time I get sad that he went, I question if I did enough in his life, if I, like what did I contribute? But when I remember that, I think like, damn, I better not let any one of my current loved ones who are still here with me ever go without thinking, dude, those twins will not stop. Like nothing will stop those twins. Like they're good humans. They're good to their girlfriends. They're good to whoever, a stranger. They're just a good human. They know how to feel their feelings. They do their best to do that. And they still treat people with the utmost love, the utmost kindness. And when I go, I know they will be fine. And we're hitting that note that it's like, what are you doing right now? Like going back to what I said, like your coworker, what is he doing right now? Like, what can you do right now? The work and the worth, understand that there may be a season of feeling down. There may be a season of feeling pity for yourself. There may be a season of X, Y, and Z. But when you turn that corner, what do you do then? Like, how are you responding to, my grandpa passed, like, oh, my brother passed, or, oh, I had a family member that I really loved, that I really spent a lot of time with, they passed.
Yeah.
But what are you doing after that? How are you honoring their name? Like whatever it is that you believe in. I don't know what X person believes in, but if you really believe they can see you from up above and they can see how you're doing, do you really believe they would want you down in the dumps? Maybe you got to feel what you feel because you're human and you're still on this earth. But do you really believe they want you just throwing a pity party for yourself? At a certain point, you just got to work while I remember the next morning, I'll never forget this. The next morning, I was like, I just gotta go work out. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
And I'm doing like bicep curls till I can't even feel anything. And I'm crying, dude.
That's demon hours right there.
Yeah.
That's demon.
I was fighting everything this earth could give me, bro. And I was just like, one day I know I'm gonna be able to tell this story, and I'm just gonna do it, just so I can give someone hope. Like just so someone could hear this and be, I really resonate with that. When I have someone that goes, I'm just gonna keep doing my routine, my good habits, and I'm gonna honor them the right way, honor their name the right way. And like you said, the legacy. Like when someone comes across me, how are you so professional? How are you so kind? Oh, my grandpa was very professional. My grandpa was very kind. And he lives that way. And he will live through me. And I hope to God, my kids, my great grandkids, because he was awesome. He was the pioneer of my family. And like that's all I could do. That's the only way I can honor his name.
But I do want to continue where we were on the subject of grief and like your story, Brandon. Like talk to me, boss, about maybe how that process has been with your grandfather and how you've been able to weaponize your grief.
About griefs and losses, the thing is, all winners have an archive of losses. All winners have an archive of losses. And during the holiday season, when I'm away from home and my father figure's gone, I'll never see him again. I'll only see him in pictures, hear about him in stories, only see him in my dreams. I remember that when I wake up, slow motion is better than no motion. And when I got to go to that gym or I got to go on that 10-mile run and I'm like missing my grandpa, I'm missing my grandpa, the only dude that would take us to visit my dad in jail, the only dude that would take us to our baseball games when mom and dad were like cats and dogs, social worker was in between. He was our monitor after children's court. The only dude that raised his hand when we were really going through the ringer as kids, when we had no voice, when we couldn't step up for ourselves. I have to remember, and for anybody that's lost someone, that's lost a loved one, breakups, heartache, all of these are the same, where we feel a pressure on our chest, our stomachs just twisted. Remember that slow motion is better than no motion. And so when you're going through it and you're going through these emotions, remember that you have to get moving. Get out the house, go for a walk, go for a run, talk to someone. Because in the end, bro, the movement medicates. Movement medicates. And so when you think about your loved one that's gone and that you'll never see, all of your actions, it's sacrificial towards them. proving to them that you really do miss them and you're not saying it like everyone else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Go
think
ahead, Darren.
yeah, the motion part, man. I think that's super important. I can only like talk on my experience, like early days. I know you caught me at UCSD, still really fresh after my sister had passed away. It happened like maybe 4 or 5 months before I transferred. So those were tough times for me, man. I remember getting to school there and like tearing my adductor before preseason, like the day before preseason started. So then now I'm not playing soccer. My life was in shambles. I'm just like, there's times where I like went to self-medicating, and there were some darker moments that, for me, I do see how people get into addictive patterns as as a way to kind of deal with the trauma or deal with life's hardships. But what always aided me in getting out of those negative headspaces was motion. It was always motion. Even like the simplest things, just getting outside, going on a run, going to the gym, hanging out with my friends, even as a distraction for how depressed I was, putting a smile on my face. And even trying to put a smile on your face actually does lead to you feeling better, like it really does, and for me, and I'm grateful for meeting you at UCSD, Brandon. As a result, getting to meet your brother, it's been a pleasure. And like, it's people like us that aid in creating positive change moving forward through that grief, weaponizing your grief. I could have sat there and had suicidal ideation like some people do when they deal with something very traumatic and experiencing a death in front of your eyes, like a very rapid one, like my sister's, something that, if you saw her in her last days, like perfectly healthy to just a very different picture, and each day the hemorrhaging in the brain got worse to the point where, even if she did survive that, it would be a much different version of my sister than I would have known growing up, so God willing, universe gave her, like, I guess, the way out. But for me, weaponizing that grief has been really beneficial in order to help create motion when I'm not feeling good, when I'm in the gym, when I'm pushing myself on like a mile pacer test, and I'm like, all right, can I get closer to 5 minutes? That lasts like 2 minutes of the run where I'm feeling like absolutely horrible. The only thing going on in my head is like, oh, well, if you could run a little bit harder to, save her life, or if you could run a little bit harder to take away the pain that she might have went through, or if you could run a little bit harder to not feel this pain, so that way you'll feel better after the fact, you would. So do it now, right? And like, those are the internal like discourse going on that I think people don't realize. As painful as it is, it's a really effective weapon to create positive growth, to really push yourself, to show up for yourself. And that's like the foundation for me.
Yeah, you're talking about emotional motivators, bro. And I think as if someone can tap into the emotional motivation, like no one will ever stop them. No one will ever impede their growth wherever they're going. No one can, like, that's someone that cannot be stopped. And on the topic of grief, I read this somewhere. It said, grief is the proof that love is greater than death.
Yeah.
Grief is the proof that love is greater than death. And so going back to it, it's like the work, slow motion is better than no motion. It's thinking like, what are you doing to show the people that are here still? That's like, ever since my grandpa passed, it's like my grandma told me that. I've been thinking like, okay, what am I doing for Brandon? Like, what am I doing that if I ever go for whatever reason, he lives on his life, can tell his kids about me, can tell his girl about me. He can tell everyone, be like, you know what? Because of him, I am the way I am. Because of the way he lived his life, I am the way I am. And so it's just this constant love for others, like constant love for my brother, for my family, for my girl. It's like, I don't want to be less for you. If I'm less, I'm showing up as less for you. And I really believe that just means I don't live up to what I say, how I feel. And so it's powerful, bro. Like, I think I don't know if it was your first experience with like a loved one passing with your sister, but it's something that you can't explain. Like I was telling my mom, because I'm visiting here for the holidays. I was like, it's just weird. Like when I think about grandpa not being here anymore, it's just weird. I don't know how to say it. You know, it's hard to really wrap my mind around that I will never see him again on this earth. You know, I have beliefs that lead me to believe that I will see him eventually, but here on this earth, he won't see my law school graduation. He won't see me in a trial. He won't see, like, it's just something that you can't really wrap around your head. But you know, these spaces are awesome because we get to like talk about that, and we get to really share how we feel. And you know, and I really believe like your loved ones, that's what they're there for, like meaningful relationships, special relationships, because we've all kind of hit at that, like humans want to be seen. And so if you can, you know, find someone to really express that, but then on your own, in your own journey, really act and prove, like Brandon said, like prove that you really miss them, prove that you really love them. Like you said, if I could run harder right now, I would, and I'm going to right now. You know, it's like really proof through action, proof through the movement.
I think that's powerful, right? Like experiencing grief on earth and how you can translate that by expressing your love for those that are still alive. Expressing that love for those that you still can see, feel, and touch. And like Leo said, like I think about all the time, like when I go out on a case, when I go out overseas, like when I'm doing these things, like if I go out on a case, getting on a boat, and these dudes want to go gung ho on us, I want to make sure that Leo moves on and he graduates law school knowing that I'm looking down on him, proud of him for everything that he's overcome, even though his best friend has passed away, you know? And so, like, you think about that, like, you meditate on mortality, like, you wake up, like, if you were to really wake up and meditate on your mortality, and wonder, like, what would my family think? What would my friends think? What would they feel if I went today? Good or bad? that should that should show you how you should act that day, right? Like if it's like, oh man, like, like I don't know what they would think. From that day forward, you find a way to make sure that they're like, man, he really gave it his all. She really gave it his all, her all. And so just like, it's just like you think about that and you meditate on your mortality, you find ways to prove your love through action. Because love is a verb. Love is a verb, and you got to prove your love through action.
I like that. Love is a verb, man. It's constantly in motion too, right? But yeah, I meditating on mortality, that's also pretty profound because I've always been very, very inclined towards philosophy, and certain philosophers that can get quite existential or nihilistic, or even we can talk about stoicism and some other ideologies of the past, Egyptian religions, and how like they were worshippers of death. You can even go into Mexico, and Dia de los Muertos is a good example of kind of like meditating on mortality. And these ancient religions all kind of revolve around this question of what death is and how it affects the human on this plane of existence, right? And so for me, meditating on mortality has been almost a liberating thing, where I've, like, when I finally the quote unquote 5 stages of grief, which I think is just a constant pursuit of understanding death. You know, you get to, I guess, unlucky or luckily start that process younger, as the three of us have. And through that process there's like a liberating stage where you're able to meditate on your mortality and think about, man, what was my message here? Did I leave a positive one? Am I a net positive human being? This world, I think, and I believe it was Leo that said this earlier, it's a negative, a mostly negative world, right? Where in reality, if you took a sample size, a population sample of the traits of most humans, I would believe, and I'd be pretty confident in saying that we tend to be like trending towards some of our more negative vices and negative characteristics, and trying to break that code and be a person that's net positive. We all fuck up, man. We all do bad things. We've all all fucked up, right? At some point or another, and treated people poorly, now maybe negligent or otherwise. That's a good example, right? But trying to at least purvey a message in the end that, oh man, like if I died today, how would my friends, my family have viewed my existence? How would they have viewed it? Would they have viewed it as, man, like that kid, poor soul, right? Or would they be like, he was a legend, like he lived what he spoke, everything that he wanted to do, he did, and maybe I should do that, right? Maybe I should be the person that does that as well. But it's the message that we leave. I think that also has been a driving force for me. I don't fear death. I'm grateful for that. If I died today, I'd be okay. I'd be perfectly fine with that reality. But for me, it's the message, right? Like I want to leave a more positive message. I want to get through all those seasons that we're talking about. How many more seasons do I need to go through to get to a point where I've got to that self-actualization of younger Darren now views the pinnacle, and now it's okay, I hit the pinnacle, what's next, right? So it's grief it's been liberating. And I know, Leo, you mentioned law school graduation coming up. Uh, my graduation at UCSD was a very painful day. Just being perfectly honest with you, and I don't know how you'll handle it, but for me, it was a very painful day. Remember, just like in shambles, sitting waiting for my graduation. Like my sister wasn't there, my grandmother had also passed, and it was like back like within a year, the two of them passed away. People that I literally spent every day with growing up, and it was tough, you know. I won't have that experience like my future wife, right? Like she won't be there. I won't see her wedding. I won't see her kids, you know. And luckily I have a lot of funny and not so funny stories that I can tell my future, children or grandchildren about her, and that in her own way she lived life on her own terms. So my grandmother too like shaped me very heavily, my spirituality, my religious beliefs. So it's it's a both, it's like a beautiful pain, you know.
Yeah, dude, dude, you're on point, dude. It's when I think about this, you were talking earlier about philosophy and like these Stoics, and I think about Marcus Aurelius. He said this along the lines, like not verbatim. He said, "Imagine you've passed away. Now think about everything you regretted. Now imagine that you've been reborn. Now do everything to make sure you never regret that ever again." And I started thinking about that more in relation to my relationship with my girlfriend. And because when my grandpa passed, I started thinking more about like, dang, like what's my biggest fear? Like right now, my biggest fear is my brother passes away. Like if Brandon were to pass away, that's like my biggest fear. Besides that, like you say, like as I know my family's gonna be sad when I pass, but I could pass and I'll be like, you know what? I feel like I've impacted enough people where, it's my time to go. But yeah, I just wouldn't want my family to, mourn and just be down in the dumps, X, Y, and Z. But if it wasn't for that, I'd be like, hey God, you can take me right now. And, I think I've done the best I can here. But the point is, like in my relationship, I started thinking about my grandma and how she's a widow now. And like she's spent like decades with this man, my grandfather. She spent decades. And I started looking at my chick and I'm like, fuck, we've only been dating for a year. We've known each other for 3 years. And I started thinking, like, fuck, if she passed right now, I would be like, bro, like, what do I do? And so it's in that moment when you start meditating, like Brandon said earlier, you meditate on someone's mortality, on your own mortality. You're like, you know what? I need to give more love right now because I don't want them to go without all this love I can give them because I got more in the tank. Like I really consider myself a lover and I got more to give to you. I love giving to people. And so it's like in that moment when I think about that, it's like, I'm gonna give more to my girl right now. I'm asking her, you hungry? I can make you something to eat. Or you need a ride somewhere, like you need me to help you, like you want me to clean the house, like I just become a servant, and I'll be a servant because I'm always proud to be a servant. But I think it's a really special thing. Like you said, it's a beautiful pain. It's really a beautiful pain because it's almost like you got this chip on your shoulder. And anyone who really relates to the hustle, they love having a reason. And I think a lot of humans should have a reason. And once you get that reason, you're like, I'm so glad I found this reason. Like I will never My first year in law school, anyone can ask, I think I talked to Brandon a bit about it, but my girl knows. I wanted to quit, dude. I was like, this is too tough. Like I'm reading like 100+ pages a night of case law that doesn't even make sense. And I was like, dude, I could do like honestly, there's something easier. I want to go back home to my mommy straight up. Like I was thinking that crazy stuff. But it's like, what would my family think? My loved ones, like what would they really think? Like, what would my girl think right here to see me quit? You know? And so I really do it when I think about that. Like when I think about that, like, dang, my loved ones right now that are present, what am I doing for them? Like, what I want to call back. I always call my pops, my mom, I text in the chat, hey, this and this happened. Hey, I got a guilty on my trial. Like, we got a conviction. Like, I'm just a little law school student. I got my first trial. Like, I want to constantly relay news, be like, hey, you guys don't have to worry about me. I'm doing the best to represent you all. I'm doing the best. When they say you're so professional, you're very, I had a judge say this, with all the humility in the world. She told me, she was like, you're very professional, but laid back. And you know who I thought about? My grandpa.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, his legacy lives on. I was like, he lives on. His legacy lives on. I had a judge 10 years ago no, maybe like 15 years ago when my pops was in and out of jail. I was like, I used to hate judges, dude. I used to hate prosecutors. I was like, you're taking away my dad from me, Now I know why they were doing it, but it's like now we're on the different side of the game. And so I really believe that's how you let a loved one that's gone know, man, he's for real. Darren's for real. That my brother's making me proud.
Yeah, Leo talking about relaying messages to family, it makes me just think about, in the courtroom, right? Like blowing kisses to my dad, like sign language, telling him this, telling him that, doing whatever I can to relay a message without saying words. Otherwise, the bailiff would kick us out of court, or my older brother, And so it's in those moments. And Leo and I, unfortunately, but fortunately, have experienced all of these things at such a young age. But through enduring, we garnered these traits of resilience, perseverance, kindness, because we know what it feels like to not feel seen. And so think about it. During this holiday season, for anybody that's lost a loved one, really think about what you're enduring right now. Not everybody has experienced that. Not everybody has experienced that. And so think about it as a trophy on your back. Nobody could take this experience, these feelings from you. And as you endure it and you overcome it, that's a confidence point. See these things as confidence points. Because remember, we all seek acceptance. We all want to be confident. Because the truth is, humans are not confident. By default, I will argue humans are not confident. They are very insecure. I've met the most beautiful people, the most successful people, and at our core, we are very insecure. We doubt ourselves, like we said earlier. And so, everything that you've overcome, remember that. Use that as a pedestal to stand on. Like, you can't take this from me. I've been in children's court. I've dealt with a social worker. I visited dad in jail. I was the pallbearer for my father figure. Like there's nothing that you can do to take away my confidence because I've earned this. Like you said, Darren, through the work, we earn that confidence. More work, more worth, and over time, if you do it long enough, movement medicates, characters revealed, when pressure's applied, slow motion is better than no motion. You apply these things, these teachings, these universal truths that have been around for ages. You apply these things and you go back to everybody on these podcasts are saying these things. Everybody at these seminars are saying these things. But once you really start to apply it and feel it and realize that there is truth to this, bro, it's been around for decades. It's been around for ages. The work really works.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I got a little in my feels. You talk about pallbearer for funeral, man, like that hits home for me. But I couldn't agree with the both of you more on the subject of Marcus Aurelius, like thinking about his story. Like imagine having the most power in the world, like you are the most powerful person in the world, and yet you disconnect from reality. You go into the forest and you just start writing these profound, you know, I guess profound understandings of reality that you would expect from someone who lived a much less extravagant life. But then you bring it back and understand his childhood, was an orphan that was adopted by the previous, leader of Rome, and then became the king, or became the leader of that society. And his growth is, I guess, like much like you guys, to some degree. And I have the utmost respect. Like hearing your story is like, it's very, very inspiring. I hope people understand just how inspiring it is. Like what you guys went through as kids, most people would have cracked, but you guys utilized that, weaponized it to be better versions, to show up better for the people around you. As you guys said, love harder, right? And I try and do that. I try to show up for people better in my own way. But for all of us, grief has been a very powerful experience that has bettered all of us. And I hope that this podcast in many ways is a different flavor or taste than what other podcasts have provided when it comes to, I guess, our emotional woes as men, as women, as however you identify as, right?
As humans.
Humans, right? Just like showing up for yourself, man. Like that's the biggest thing. I think you know, there's a lot to be said about people that can take their traumas and turn it into like a flower, right? And being able to like be like that beacon on the hill for those that otherwise would not be able to see the light, right? I think with the only one of the things that I would always like harken back to when I was like really deep in my grief was, there's no light without darkness, right? There's literally none. You can't perceive light without darkness. I did not I was not be able to perceive my highest vibration without understanding the opposite end of that spectrum, right? Whereas I was always up here before she passed, my highest happiness was really here, but now I see the full spectrum. I now understand, okay, with this pain, I know that there's more, right? I know that maybe I haven't even achieved the highest vibration yet. And I want to talk to you guys about that because I believe in it truly. Like there's the whole quantum theory aspect of it that maybe we can talk about in another time, which is a very profound discussion in and of itself of questions of reality and what is reality, right? But the highest vibration, right? What does that mean to you guys?
Yeah, dude. I mean, when I think of vibrations, I think like there's always someone, everyone can think of someone where they're like, they just got good vibes. And I don't think that's on accident. Like, I really don't think that's an accident. Like, there's this theory that's like the funniest people have been through the darkest pain. And that's what I'm saying. It's not on accident. Like, they've really been through something to really show up as something else. And whether it's a coping mechanism or not, that's not for me to explain. I'm no psychologist or scientist, whatever. But when someone's got good vibes, I think it's on purpose. Like there's a reason it's a side effect. Like happiness. I really believe like everyone's chasing happiness, but I think people need to understand that that's a side effect. Like what are you doing to create X, Y, and Z? That's good vibes, your frequency, high vibration. Like I've come to the point, the amount of schools I've moved, like Brandon has mentioned, with pops, my grandpa passing, like my parents' divorce, I've come to really believe that a moving body and a negative mind, they cannot coexist. They will not, it never will coexist. And so you think you're in a negative state, you're in a negative mind, you go on a run. If you're 1 mile in and you're still feeling negative, guess what, bro? Keep running. Like straight up. I don't know how else to say it, but keep running. You're at the gym, it's been 1 hour, just stay there. You know what? Eventually it'll hit. The light will go on and you'll be like, you know what? I did the work. And what's the byproduct? Caring for your health, X, Y, and Z. But that's the whole point, is that a negative mind and a moving body will never, ever coexist. And so when you meet someone and you listen to someone speak and they got good vibrations, there's something about their message, there's something about their voice that makes you feel safe, that makes you feel seen, that makes you feel like man, this human is good. I don't think that's an accident. If you see someone, if you ever hear someone speak like that, you better make an effort to get to know them more. Like last night, my P bro, man, he's been through a lot. His dad passed. And I knew when I met him, I was like, there's something about this kid. Like there's something. And I got to know him. I'm like, this is why. Like it's not an accident. It's really not. Like the amount he's overcome, the amount a human can overcome. And when you see that, like energy doesn't lie. I'll forever believe that energy does not lie. And so when you sense that, when you feel that, it should be like a target. Like, I'm going to get to know this person. I'm going to learn from this person. I'm going to see what gets them going. Because if it gets them going, I really believe it could get me going too. Humans are different. I believe that we have different interests and likes, but we experience the same core emotions: happiness, sadness, anxiety, depression. We all have these states. And so the only thing different is the season you're in, right? Like I may be sad today, Brandon's living life today, even though we're twins, we have the same background. It's just like that. But if you run across someone that has just good energy, they're always trying to give you their best. I really believe like vibrations, frequency, it's on purpose. It's not an accident. And you should really get to know them because they're doing something that you're probably not if you're not on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
Yeah, humans really do experience the same core emotions. We just respond differently. And I think when on the topic of positive and negative states, I really do believe this world exists through contrast. Like this world really does exist through contrast. And so if you're able to understand that and live by that, when you're having that season where nothing is going your way, when you're not making sales, you're not doing what you thought you'd do, end of the year, and you're like, man, I didn't accomplish the goals I set out to accomplish in January. Remember that life exists through contrast. And so, if you really live it day by day, moment by moment, you string enough moments throughout the day, week, month, and year, eventually your time will come. And I'm a big believer in that because of my life. Because of my life. I remember in times in Section 8, I never thought this life would happen. I never thought this life was a reality. I thought this life only existed on TV. I really did. And so now that this life is a reality, it's like, yeah, there's contraction and expansion phases in this world. There's contraction and expansion phases in this world. And when you're feeling contracted, remember that the expansion phase is coming. And so you just got to stick to it. Stick to the plan, stick to the blueprint. Don't forget the product. You're the product. You got to build that product. Eventually, your time will come. Believe me, I'm proof of that. Leo's proof of that. Darren, you're proof of that. Through your experiences with your sister, your woes through your collegiate experience, you're proof that your time will come. That was just a time of contraction. The expansion phase is coming. And when that time comes, don't forget everything that you did during that phase of contraction that helped you feel better. Don't forget.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. Expansion and contraction, right? Negative and positive, whatever semantic you want to put on that, light and darkness. There's just a balance in this universe that I think is just inherently chaotic, and being able to see when you can kind of navigate through that, that's the vibration to some degree. Like I know we were talking about it earlier, being able to see when that next season is coming, right? Being able to almost anticipate the next season. Yeah, maybe you're down right now, but you put in work when you were down, so that way you show up better for when you're up. So that way the next time you're down for a little bit less. And maybe you're down because it's a bigger struggle, a bigger problem that now you have put in the work when you were down before to show up better for that struggle. And you're just building, and you're always going to be dealing with problems. Like I think that's the biggest thing. It's like the problems are never going to go away, no matter how rich you are. You could be a billionaire, but then, oh, you got a $300 million lawsuit against you because another company doesn't want to see you win. Someone else doesn't want to see you win. How do you show up in that moment? Are you just going to like huddle down and just accept your reality and see all the work you put in crumble in front of you? Absolutely not. Like you gotta keep that trajectory going no matter where you are in life. And I was lucky of my my childhood experience, how I grew up, the blessings that I received as a result. And I guess the stark reality is what life has thrown at me since that it's very different than what my childhood provided. And so maybe there is a necessary counterbalance that I've had to go through in order to reach that higher vibration. And I do believe that through it, it's made me a better person. And not only that, in terms of, you know, just how other people might perceive me or you guys, right? If they don't align with you, why is that? Why is the alignment off? Maybe it's because there's something they haven't done, the work they haven't put in, and because of that, they can't reach wherever we are. And I'm not saying I'm way up here. I have a lot to grow, but I'm just saying the people that I align with, the vibration that puts me together, like I genuinely do feel when I'm in a room like this where I can talk about way more serious subjects with the type of intricacy that we do. That doesn't happen very often. And that's the vibration that we align on. And we've experienced through our growth, through our struggles, that often when I'm in public, if I do talk about something like this, people can't correlate, or they don't have the capacity for empathy, or they don't have the capacity to comprehend because they haven't put in the work. And so they might now negatively reflect on that and project. And so how do we break that projection? It's through growth, man. Motion. I feel like if there is something we could like title for this podcast, it'd be motion. Like all
Yeah.
this is really motion.
I was texting Leo. I was like, "Yo, dude, Steve will do is right here on the treadmill next to me," and it's a weird feeling to see everybody that's made a name for themselves on the online space in person,
Yeah.
right? Like you see someone online and you're like, wow, it's like entertainment for you. Like you go on these channels, these TikToks, these YouTube videos, these Instagrams, and they're like, it's entertainment. And so when you see them in person and they duplicate everything they talk about
That's
online and
different.
in person, it's like, ooh, that's different,
That's
And
different.
so it was just like a weird experience, but that's why I think this podcast is really going to kick off. I think that we're all individuals that really walk the talk. And like Leo has mentioned before, with our girlfriends, like we really want to make sure that we walk that talk, right? Because I mean, we've been posting on Instagram for about 2 years now, since college, since undergrad. And Leo with his girlfriend and my girlfriend, it's like we still want to show to them everything that we post online, we are trying to duplicate that in real life because we don't want to be like everybody else that puts up a facade, that fakes the funk, that's just good online, but not in person. And we really want to be those individuals that we needed growing up. We needed somebody vulnerable. We needed someone that was proving that it's commitment over feelings through their actions, not just regurgitating what they read in a book or what they read with Marcus Aurelius, like really living it, bro. Not saying like I've listened to 1,000 podcasts by Ed Milet and I'm like some heightened individual because of what I've learned through him. Like, no, like really living it. And that's the key. It's you observe these individuals that have made a name for themselves. You observe these individuals that have made a name for themselves, and then you apply their teachings, these universal truths like we talk about. And so it's across the board, bro. It's across the board. You make sure that you're really walking the talk.
It's that application, right? I've been privileged in the sense like when I graduated, I've hopped around quite a few industries and done well for myself, but specifically in entertainment, I've been at red carpet events, at celebrity events, met a
Hey,
lot.
I've been seeing that. I've been seeing that,
Yeah,
bro.
bro, and like I've met some big people, don't get me
And
wrong.
this is a killer. I tell Leo all the time, this is a killer right here.
Yeah, so I've met some people, right? Like, and through the process of meeting these people that you see on TV or on a movie or like singers, rappers, all this shit, you get to see like who really walks the walk, right? And and like that's kind of like the value proposition I think that we offer to people. And I hope that we continue to purvey. Right now I'm single. I'm not in a relationship. But I do believe that in my mentality on it's like I want to be able to be the best version of myself to show up for my future wife, right? Like That's super important. And being able to walk the walk and talk the talk are two separate things, right? Like you could be a very excellent orator, and through that you'll gain support, but without actually being active. Like I was reading the Republic, and the Republic talks about the highest individual in the society, right? The guardian class. And the guardian class is only made of individuals that are both intellectually adept and physically adept. You need both sides of the coin. If you have one, you become malleable. Like if you're intellectually adept but you don't have the physical strength to back it, you become kind of malleable as a human being. Like you are so ideologically malleable that any new information you just immediately take in. But on the other side of the coin, you can be like almost a brick wall of just like, I'm just strength. Like my whole life is strength, without being able to also see that, hey, although I have this foundation that I've built that I see every day in the mirror, there's new information that I can take in to be a better version of myself. And also, I think like with social media, there's a lot of negativity on here, and you could see that through content creation. But there's also content creators that, for example, like Steve will do it, or Kyle, the Nelk Boys. Like I do appreciate them, because as much as they live this like high rolling lifestyle, like Kyle's been on like this 180-day lifting journey that he talks about. Dude's fucking jacked now, right? He went from like partying every day of the summer to like waking up one day and being like, I literally hate my life, kind of how I felt after my Hawaii trip, where I was like, God damn, dude. Like I was telling Leo, I literally missed my flight in Vegas. I missed my flight in Vegas because I was so blacked out that I
That's real, dog. That's
whoa,
real.
it was bad. And like I remember like waking up in the airport in Vegas like 6 hours later. I'd missed my flight. I was like, fuck, I going up to the flight attendant, like the people at the front. It's like, I need another flight.
Like a loser, bro.
They sent me to Philadelphia. I had no idea that I fell in a bush and had a rip in my jeans, bro. I looked like a bum. I was a straight up bum, bro. So, yo, and then that whole day, I was just like questioning my existence, like I'm better than this, right? But like, since that, I've really implemented just like full discipline to its highest degree to get to where right now, I feel like I'm in that state that I think like I see in Kyle right now, where, yeah, don't get me wrong, like I'll go out here and there. I write articles for edm.com, so I'll be at big events every once in a while. I'll try and like stay sober at those events to just show up better for, the people that I need to represent. But don't get me wrong, like I still have my fun, but it's important to find that balance, like, and, make sure that you are still continuing the motion. And I see that in celebrities, and like some celebrities, bro, man, I working PR, you could pay for fame. You really could pay for fame. If I had 6,000 in the bank each month to pay a really solid publicist, I could be very successful within 6 months. And that's a guarantee, knowing the right people. But do those people emanate the values that I want to project? Absolutely the fuck not. And I'm sure like it's so apparent in people that like yourselves that you could see that.
Hey, dude, you made me think of when you were talking about the Republic, the book you were reading. It's a book, right? I've heard
Yeah.
of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You're talking about like, just like the mental strength, the physical strength. I remember when Brandon introduced me to you, I was like, right away, I knew that, your EQ is high. Like, I was like, all right, he likes to talk about good stuff. Like, I really appreciate this is a solid homie right here. And then I've been seeing your post, bro. You're straight up chopped up, bro. Like you're in good shape. And I was just like, even more respect, because I'm reading this book right now. It's called The Whole Truth for Lawyers. And it's some judge. He was a partner at some civil firm. And he, like we've been talking about, he's walked the talk. Like he has room to talk, and what he talks about is having good health, and how he was an attorney. He was working like 15, 18 hours a day at some civil firm. He was making the money people dream about making. But guess what? His personal relationships, he was like, I don't know how it was going. Like he's honest about it. Like that book's been awesome because I've always been like focused on personal development and then my career in law. And with this book, I feel like both worlds collided. And that's what I feel like, like I know that I feel like I've been given, a gift from God. Like I really believe that God's given me a gift to, really feel how I feel and be able to articulate those feelings. And, I know that I put in the work in the gym, I'm in great shape and I feel comfortable in my skin. I don't know how else to say it, but what I've been really working on lately is my relationship, like being able to love another human for where they're at and who they are, And so when I read this relationship book talking about appreciating when two worlds collide, and that's like me and my girl. It's like two different worlds. She's born and raised in Hawaii. I'm born and raised in LA. We met in undergrad. She has her past. I have my past. And it's just like loving that collision. Like what happens after that collision? And I think there's a next level to that, bro. Like mentally strong and physically strong, like emotionally strong. Like me and Brandon talk about it sometimes. It's like you can be like a wise dude, but when you're in an emotional relationship, like in a relationship that involves emotions, and you guys both love each other a lot, and you start feeling the jealousy, the insecurity that every human feels, they're attractive and people are, they're interested. And it's just like you start feeling those human elements and you got to check yourself. You got to be tough. You got to be strong mentally and be like, you know what? I just trust my person. But I've been really working on that, like giving love unconditionally, because I want to be that triple threat. Like I really want to be that triple threat. And you talking about that book, it really reminds me of that. And like we're saying, it's like, do you walk the talk? Like I wanted like my coworkers, I want them to know who follow me on Instagram. I want them to know that in person, he's just like that on Instagram.
Yeah.
Like he loves the quotes, he loves talking about that. And something I've been also working on is like putting little memes in my stories because like I'm a little clown too. I like to joke around. I like to just like have fun and just like, just and so I put memes on my story to try to like show that side of myself too, because I don't want someone thinking, oh, he's like all serious and just stoicism this. No, dude, like I'm a human too. And I've been it's like something on my mind for 2024, dude. And it's like how can I really embody everything I'm talking about? How can I really be that triple threat? But yeah, Brody, it's a work in progress, but I think everyone is, everyone's got to start somewhere, like Brandon always says.
I love
Yeah,
that.
and Darren, before I spit like straight facts, I want you to know this, dog. Like 20 years from now, 20 years from now, because Leo and I will never stop. Like we garner respect through our conduct and character, like I've said already. We will never stop. That's the only way we can validate ourselves through our conduct and character.
Yeah.
But I want you to know this 20 years from now, when things really kick off and we really start to make a name for ourselves, we're going to look back to these days, to these moments, to this call.
Yeah.
Be like, Darren gave us a chance. Like, Darren gave us a space where we felt like we had a voice. And this podcast will kick off, and I know it will because, like, I think about Steve will do it, and these guys that I see in Miami, all respect to them, but the reality is like we're humans. And I believe that if there's somebody willing to step up and be vulnerable enough and comfortable enough to be in that zone of discomfort long enough, this podcast will take off because that's what we're going to talk about. Those feelings, those emotions. Emotions are energy in motion. Emotions are energy in motion, and if we can talk about how we experience all of these things, if we experience all of these things every single day, every moment throughout the day, but overcome those things because we believe that it's commitment over feelings, people are going to be able to connect with the reality of what humans experience every single day. And so just know that, Darren,
Yeah.
you gave us a chance. Like you were the first person to say, "Hey, I want to hear you guys speak. I want to allow you guys to talk in this space." And when this thing does kick off, believe that. Like Leo and I value loyalty, and we just recently posted on our story. Like if you're not following Leo, if you're not following Darren, like you have to follow these people because we post about vulnerability, we post about things that are real. And the other day we posted on our story about loyalty. Like every single day since we got our first tattoo, we've gone to the same artist. And I was overseas
That's
in
dope.
Colombia. I was overseas in Curacao, in Cuba. Like I had a homeboy that was going to some artist in Colombia and Cartagena. He got a huge shoulder piece for like less than $100. I was like,
No.
bro, less than $100, a
I
whole
think I gotta go to
shoulder.
Colombia, bro.
Dude, my artist charges 150 for setup, like just to put you on the bed,
Yeah.
like just to bring out the needle. And I was like, yeah, it's tempting, but I value loyalty. And every single day I tell myself when I'm overseas, no, I got an artist back home. No, I got a girlfriend back home. No, I got a father and grandfather back home to make proud. And so you value these things and you move on. Like if you don't stand for anything, you're gonna fall for anything. Like if you don't stand for something, you're gonna fall for anything. And so, just moving forward, it's like you gotta question yourself, like, what do you value?
Yeah.
And you live by that through and through every single day.
Yeah, first off, I know you dealing out gratitude towards me. I think it could equally be put in your guys' direction as well. You guys constantly are putting out a good message online. And again, I wanted to talk about like the pursuit of excellence. And I think both of you guys are legitimately living that lifestyle where it again, what you say online is actually how you live your life. And being able to talk about things with vulnerability is a really difficult thing for men because we don't want to be seen as like soft, right? Like we don't want to be seen as like weak in any capacity. But in reality, I think it's quite empowering that we're able to both talk about some of the more difficult questions of our realities. And then at the same time, like we back it up, like I don't care what anyone says. If they looked at a photo of you two in the gym, they're like, yo, those motherfuckers get after it, right? Like 1000%. And so that's just like, again, value proposition, right? It's one thing to be like virtue signaling, and then you go look at someone who doesn't live a healthy lifestyle, but they talk about all these things. You got to raise your cortisol levels. You got to do this, that, or whatever, right? It's like, bro, Hormozy says it because he's a G. Cupid says it because that motherfucker gets after it. But you saying it, you ain't shit realistically until you show us that you're the shit, right? And you guys are the shit, like legitimately. So for me, it makes my life a lot easier to be able to talk about these subjects with you, and the opportunity for me to have talked with you around this time last year to kind of start, I think, what ultimately was going to be bound to be put into motion, which is us three discussing life, like just really discussing life and empowering individuals. Like it should never be like a therapy session in the sense that, I think sometimes people just need to talk about their problems and not find solutions. No, let's weaponize the problems to be creating solutions. Let's make it powerful in the sense that like I'm pursuing something bigger than myself. Like I I know that as much as I don't want to go to the gym today, or as much as I don't want to go to work today and execute on all my deliverables, I need to. I need to because every day that I keep doing it, people have less reasons to doubt how legit I am as a person, have less reasons to doubt how legit Leo is as a person, how legit Brandon is as a person. Like that's not something you can fake. And real individuals like that have gotten after it, they see through the bullshit, man. Like I can only talk about my job right now. I I have a lot of people that I have to manage, like 90 plus individuals, right? And then arguably hundreds of more, depending on if they're on my floor or within my department. But point being is my bullshit meter is way up here, but my empathy meter is up here. You
That's good.
So I have to be cognizant of how real of a person you are and how are you executing on your work, but also understand that maybe there's something more going on, right? And like balancing that has been very difficult for me, but I think that's also pushing me towards excellence, right? Being able to handle some of the more difficult questions of work and managing other people's lives. Like I could be the reason why someone doesn't put food on the table tomorrow. That's a scary fucking thing to think about. And how do I promote their growth, but also show up for myself in a corporate world is a difficult thing too. But I think ultimately, if I do all the little things well, then it frees up my mind so that way I can show up better for others around me, better servant. And like that's excellence too.
Yeah, dude, that's when you guys are talking, like I think about Brandon earlier was talking about like, like we got to make sure people listen to this podcast because of the vulnerability we're willing to share like the vulnerability, the level of vulnerability we're willing to reach. And like you said, Darren, like, as a man, it's scary. It's sometimes hard. It feels forbidden to show that. Like when I'm in public with my girl, I always feel like I got to keep a straight face. And I'm like scared to feel like I'm allowing someone to pick on me in front of my girl. And that's part of my own insecurity. And I got to realize like my girl doesn't want this like emotionless dude next to her. She wants someone that can love her. She wants someone that can make her feel safe at the same time of loving her, and just someone that's human. And I really resonate with that. And the whole point of me saying this is, Darren, how old are you right now?
25.
Yeah, we're all 25 then.
Yeah,
And when I think about this podcast, you know what I think about? Is age is insignificant when value is provided.
absolutely.
When true value is provided, age is insignificant. Like me and Brandon talk about it sometimes. It's like, hey, dude, I don't know how worse it's gonna get. Like, we really, my grandfather's passing, your sister passing. Like, I don't know how harder it gets to live on this earth. I really don't. Like, I don't know how harder it gets to live on this earth. I could get fired and be like, you know what? At the very least, it wasn't as bad when I found out my grandpa was passing. Because I
Yeah,
got a from my mom.
That's real, dog. That's
that's
real.
facts, bro. That's yeah.
I got a call from my mom, and she was like, I was in class and she called me like 2 times. And I was like, my mom's tripping out right now. Like something's happening. So I leave class, and right now it's like weird to feel like it's like you get some sensation in your body. And my mom was like, she started explaining like what was happening with my grandpa. Like he was having like a heart attack, X, Y, and Z. And I was like, what? Like, dude, my world was like spinning like 1,000 miles an hour, dude. I was like, what do I do? Like, do I go back to class? Do I drive to California? I'm 1,000 miles away. Like, it's crazy thoughts happening.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's important is perspective. It's like the value and the perspective. Like, I could get fired right now. You know what? I'm gonna bounce back. You know why? Because nothing will ever hurt me the way I was hurt when I found out my grandpa passed.
Yeah.
And I really believe like perspective is the problem. Like your perspective on X situation, your perspective on Y situation. Like I think I'm on my caseload right now in court. I'll ask for like maybe like 30 days jail, 90 days jail, because I still got a misdemeanor caseload because I'm still in law school. But then last summer, when I was at the DA's office here in LA, I was in the prison crimes unit. So we were dealing with people that got life sentences. And we're talking about football numbers that they're asking the judge to give.
Yeah.
And I remember this DA, she was like, I've never had anyone plead out to less than 25 years in prison. And I was like, what the? I have people in my caseload pleading out to like probation and showing up to prove that you completed a traffic course. Like perspective, bro. Like levels to this game. And so it's just like, how do you see it? Like, how are you seeing the circumstances falling onto your lap? But that's the whole point I'm trying to bring up is this is like value. I really believe that here it's like Darren's faced the worst. I really believe Darren's faced the worst that this earth can provide. Brandon's faced the worst that this earth can provide. And it's just like, let's get it cracking. Like, let's get it rolling. Like, I really believe there's value to be provided here, no matter what age you are. If you're older than us, you're younger than us. Like, Darren's got a successful career. Brandon's got a successful career. It's like, why not?
Yeah, and like Darren said, I just wanted to say that believe me, this is not a therapy session because I'm in therapy. This is not trauma bonding. This is not
Yeah.
none of that, bro, because I go to my therapist and I trauma dump all my shit from getting my ass kicked, from pissing myself of how angry my dad was at me, like all that. All that. The point of us coming together is to tell that story of that yes, you're going to go through these struggles. Yes, you're going to go through that season, but it's contraction and expansion. Like Darren said it, I was blessed as a kid, but I wanted to cut him off, but I didn't. Darren said he was blessed as a kid, but pain is proportional, bro. Pain is proportional. Gaining and maintaining are just as hard. They're equally hard. I think about my girlfriend and the upbringing she had and how different it is from mine and how she has basically everything at her fingertips. I haven't, but the thing is, whatever she goes through, I can't invalidate that.
Yeah.
I can't invalidate that. Just like I can't say whatever I went through is the worst thing anybody can experience. And so you learn that through therapy. And while I am going through that, I know that this podcast will not be that, because those sessions are real. And so this is like just a space where we can have those discussions, and you can give us insight of what it's like to like working in Amazon. Leo, you can give us insight what it's like as a lawyer in my cases and what I see overseas and, Colombia, Curse, all these things, right? Like, it's just to give insight and relate our work related experiences, our life related experiences, and how while we go through our own things, humans experience the same core emotions.
That's real. That's real. I mean, I've also been in therapy. It was a very important thing for me to experience in order to kind of deal with abstract emotions, and just I think just me like literally not being able to see just how traumatic my experience was. And that, again, there's a lot more people that I think I've dealt with worse than myself, and everything, like you said, is proportional. Being I agree with you in that sense, where like you can't really compare your pain to someone else because it's different, but at the same time, like we can be empathetic and like understand that uh some of the solutions that we've created for ourselves can be translated. Like you can take those tools, and again, for me, I like to say I weaponize it, right? Weaponize it for better usage, right? I've been very lucky to have met a lot of inspiring individuals and read a lot of books about inspiring individuals. I'm an avid historian. I fucking love history. It's like my favorite thing. And learning about people and how they've been able to break cycles of trauma, ancestral trauma, break, maybe the ruling of apathetic leaders and societies that were constructed poorly. Like these are things that bigger questions of humanity that I've found very inspiring growing up and to this day. And so I try and utilize those tools, right? I try and take the best out of it. But at the same time, it's like I don't want to be a toxically positive person. I think that's even more negative, where you just like I remember I was like talking to this girl once, like we were starting to get serious, and she was just like one of these like manifestation type girls, right? And not to say it's bad, but everything that she would say is like, I manifested this. Like I believed it would happen and it occurred. But there's work to be put in as well. And I think like the way that she would give her energy at times, it felt like you're neglecting that the negativity in your life is a real force that you need to utilize, and you need to be able to see it properly and then make your moves. I can't just be like, okay, my car keys aren't here, so therefore I'm going to just meditate on this for 10 seconds and it's going to show up in front of me. No, there's steps. Like you got to take the steps to find the fucking keys, right? And like that's everything in life, man. Okay, my car is my depression, right? Where's the fucking keys? All right, okay, step one. Let's go look under the cabinet. Let me check my door. Maybe I left it there. And before you know it, you've taken all these steps, I think, through therapy, where it been beneficial for me, where I've taken all these steps to try and confront like the maze of what the trauma was. And then I found the key and I was like, oh shit, it's because XYZ or ABC or a plethora of different reasons that contributed to why I couldn't find the key. But I didn't just magically wish it away. And I don't want this to be like, at least my message, I never want it to be, oh, like I get after it and I live this lifestyle, so you should too. Nah, find your fucking reasons. Figure out what that is. Like the reason why I'm here is because of some shit that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, man. Like the shit that I've seen, I guarantee you, I would not wish it on my worst enemy. The emotions that I felt when my sister died, like I couldn't even describe to you how painful that shit was. It was like hysteria on top of anxiety, on top of just like really, yeah, it was just horrible. And
Yeah.
I like worse than any drug I've ever taken in terms of just like like reality blending. I couldn't perceive if this was real or not. That's how fucked up it was. And like people don't know that, but in reality, it's good to also let them know, hey, I'm not just like this happy person. I put in work to show up better, but this isn't therapy.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, dude. I think, like you're saying, there's work to be done, the shadow work. That's what me and Brandon like to call it, the shadow work. And it's like, what are you willing to do when no one's looking, when no one's watching, when you're getting ready for bed? Like your thoughts there, that's who you are. And it's thinking about like, do you take care of your health, your mental health? Like, what are you doing to make sure that you're okay? Because you're right. Like, there's a certain level of positivity where it's like, bro, that's not real. Like, that's not, you're a human, dude. You're a human who experiences emotion. And like Brandon said way earlier, it's like this world exists through contrast. Like, it's not always going to be good. But dude, I'll say this is even if my life is going to shits, like I'm gonna do my best to make sure I heal that on my own. I'm not gonna give my problems to Darren. I'm not gonna be like, hey, bro, like this, and that happened. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm treating you like you don't mean anything to me because this. No, it's not an excuse to treat people like they don't mean anything to you. You know what I'm saying? It's like me and Brandon in our relationships, like that's one of our areas of growth is that at a certain point, never seeing your parents kiss, never seeing your parents love, never seeing your parents hold hands, it's an old excuse. Like just because I never saw what real love looks like doesn't mean I'm gonna treat my girlfriend like she doesn't mean anything to me. Like at a certain point, that excuse gets old. You know what I'm saying? There has to be work done. There has to be focus. There has to be focus on, okay, this is where I'm lacking. You know what I'm saying? And so I really resonate with that, Darren. It's like you can't just think your way into some existence. Like, of course, think about this vision, like have a vision, like have an idea of who you want to be, the relationship you want to have, the family you want to create. But there's something before that. There's actually a lot before that. And it's called work.
A lot of steps.
A lot of work, you know what I'm saying? And it's the work that a lot of people don't want to. That's why the term one percenters has been created because people don't want to do it, you know? And at this point, like I really believe, like if I'm speaking objectively about Brandon and Darren, it's just like you just gotta let the time tick. Like you gotta let the clock tick because you guys do the work, you guys feel what you gotta feel, you guys have great, meaningful relationships, you guys love your family. Like if you're in a spot like that and you're around this age, early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, early whatever it is, just let the time, just let it go. Because I had someone tell me, he was like, with your habits, with who you are as a human, dude, the sky's the limit. And that's real.
Absolutely.
And Leo was spitting fucking straight facts right now. And what he said about mom and dad, I think having a bad example is just as having a bad example is just as good as having a good one. Because now you know what not to do.
Yeah.
Like Leo said, like I never saw mom and dad hold hands. I never saw mom and dad, hug, all that. But at a certain point, those excuses get old. And so when we're in our relationships, when we're talking to our girlfriends, like that excuse is no longer valid because we've had enough time to process those emotions. We've had enough time to really feel those feelings. And so at what point is the human making the decision to make sure that they're not doing the things that they didn't feel was good enough growing up? And so, like Leo said, it's no longer an excuse. And so as you move forward and as you get older, you have to reflect on those moments. Like people have to have a time in their day where they fill up their own cup, where they fill up their own cup and they're reflecting on experiences that they've gone through, or they're reflecting on the regrets. Everybody throughout their day should at least have a moment in their life where they reflect on their regrets. You don't slide it under the rug, you don't slide it under the table. You really reflect and dive into what you've done. You sit in the and you saturate yourself in that pain of like, damn, I really fucked up on that one. I think about like arguments with my girl. It's like, damn, I really wet the bed on that one. And the thing is, like, everybody can make a mistake. My therapist told me, There isn't a human in this world that can control their first thought. My
Damn,
therapist
that's
told me,
deep, bro.
my therapist told me, there isn't a human in this world that can control their first thought, but every human in this world can control their reaction. And so it's stimulus and response, and there's a space in between both. Like, what are you doing when you meet stimulus and then you feel like you have to give a response? What are you doing in that space? And that's what matters. Like, if you can shorten that gap when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling frustrated, when you're feeling stressed, if you can shorten that gap and make the right decisions after what's triggering you in a way that like your lower self is overpowering your higher self, then you start to win. Then you start to win in life, right? Like, Leo and I have been conditioning ourselves to remind ourselves that, hey, we didn't have the best examples growing up in Section 8, in the projects, all that, visiting dad in prison, all that. But now we have the chance to construct our life the way we want it to end up the way we want it to be. And so it's stimulus and response, stimulus and response. What are you doing in the space between stimulus and response?
That's powerful. I think like I catch myself, wanting to react to things that maybe I need some time to pause and really figure out, like, am I in the right headspace to be responding to this? And often time gives me the better outlet to give that response, or at least being able to separate myself from that initial stimulus. So yeah, that's something I think my job at least has been teaching me a lot of patience, right? A lot of patience. Like, I be hearing shit told to my face that straight up is fighting words outside. But I gotta like pause and like be like, job's on the line here. I'm not about to lose my job over how someone feels about themselves they're projecting onto me. That's just one situation that I can talk on. But the recording's about to end. So for the next section, let's get after some of these Instagram responses.
Hey, let's just not end up on a website, bro.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about too, bro. That's what I'm
And
worried.
we'll just cut and edit. That's all
Yeah,
that,
exactly. Okay, so we're gonna kind of pick it up. Like, this is I put a little Instagram post out earlier to ask people about topics that we could discuss on. I know we were just chatting a little bit about women and relationships, and that's actually one of the biggest things that popped up on the topic responses, was surrounding that subject. So Brain, I'm gonna let you start off with this one, boss.
I think in today's day, like, things are different than what they were. Like, I think about my grandma and grandpa. My grandma stayed home and made food. My grandma stayed home and cleaned the house. My grandma stayed home and folded his clothes. Meanwhile, my grandpa was out working as a gardener. My grandpa was out working, making the bread. He was the breadwinner. I think about my parents. The times that my dad wasn't locked up, he was the breadwinner. He owned his own business. He had a food truck, sold mariscos, like all that stuff, shrimp, everything, you name it. Like, he had his own business. He was the breadwinner. But in today's day, the truth is, I personally believe that there are things that men can do and that there are things that women can do that the other cannot do. I really believe that. I really believe there are things that women can do that men cannot do. Like, it's out of our role. It's out of our field of play. And so I think about my relationship. I think about my strengths. I think about my girlfriend's strengths. There are things she's really good at that I just suck at, straight up, point blank, straight up. And so in that moment where I feel insecure, in that moment where I feel like I'm not good enough or I'm less than, I have to remember, in this relationship, there are things that she can do that I cannot, and vice versa.
And
And so, like, I think about things like that, and how there's I think women are more powerful than they believe. I think that they're women are more powerful than they think, because if there's a man in this world that likes a woman enough, he will fucking lose his life over that woman.
mhm.
And that's the truth, bro. Everything a man does is an effort to garner the respect of a woman. That's what I think. And so you see and you hear about relationships where like girls are chasing after these guys that are just fucking shit bags and they're dirt bags, they're deadbeat dads. And it's like, man, it's frustrating because like women don't see how much they have to offer in today's day, right? In today's day. And so just like I think about that, like just overall, my answer to that is that there's things that I can't do that she can do and vice versa.
Yeah, let's make it clear for the record too. Like we're talking about heterosexual relationships. Like I really believe, like I'm on the same wavelength, even though me and Brandon grew up together, we're twins. We we have different ideas and different interests. Now that I've realized he has his own career in the Coast Guard, I have my own career in law, but we still have similar values. And I really believe what Brandon's saying is true. You know, like my girl can do stuff that I cannot. Like, I'm not even going to try to compare. Like, I'm not even going to try to attempt to be who she is in X space. Like, she's not going to try to be who I am in X space. Like, I really believe that's the beauty in a relationship. We talked about it earlier. It's like, can you learn to appreciate when two worlds collide? When that collision happens, can you learn to appreciate the result of that? I believe that's what a relationship is, heterosexual relationship, whatever it is, whatever kind of relationship you're in. Like the other person brings something to the table that you cannot. You bring things to the table that they cannot. And so I think when it comes down to it, I really believe that people just don't want to listen to each other. When it comes to these heated topics, people don't want to listen to each other. And I'll be saying something, and the other person is saying a similar thing. Like we're saying the same thing that we both just can't find each other in the middle because, like, no, I have to be heard. You have to listen to me. You have to X, Y, and Z. And I believe it just comes down to not being able to like listen to each other, like have a good heart to be open to whatever Darren has to say, you know, or whatever Brandon has to say. But I think Brandon's on point on that. It's like I think you're gonna find your person and they're gonna excel in areas that you do not excel in. I'll speak on my own relationship. It's honestly probably the only thing I can speak on. Like my girl is very good at loving unconditionally. It's very hard for me to love unconditionally when I never saw love. I believe I give love and I'm going to get it back. That's the only way I've experienced love. That's the only way I've experienced it. But she's very good at X. Am I working towards being good at that? Of course. Does she have a natural inclination to be does she have a natural inclination to be loving without conditions? Yes. And so I just respect her for who she is in that space, you know. But I really believe at the root of it, people don't want to listen to each other, and I really believe everyone is saying similar things since the dawn of time, but it gets heated, you know. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's an emotional topic, and so it's hard to come to a common ground, for lack of better words.
Yeah, and something that I didn't mention was that, you know, I hear stories from my dad, like just being raised in the penitentiary, like that whole system, it's very, in a sense, like you can't grow up properly. Like I feel like young men that go into prison, go into jail, go through that system, they're not raised properly. Because to me, poking someone, sticking someone, making sure that their moms cry is not real manhood. And that's the truth. Like I hear these stories from my dad, like all these big bad gangsters, hoods tatted on the neck, hoods tatted on the cheeks, the neck, the you know everything. Bro, the minute they get locked up and the fucking judge slams that, you know, they slam that sentence on them, and they're facing football numbers. Bro, you see them go back to their cell, they're crying.
Yeah.
Like that's not gangster at all, bro. You got your get back, but that's not gangster at all how you respond to that get back. You know, and so I think about that and it's like, what is manhood? To me, it's being like fragile, it's being vulnerable, it's being able to feel my feelings with my girlfriend. And so when I think about her and I think about my relationship, like how am I being vulnerable not only to my friends, to the public on Instagram, but to my girlfriend, to where it matters? Like, am I able to feel my feelings with my girlfriend? And so to me, that's gangster. All that other shit is not. And so you think about gender roles, I think a man needs to be a man, but also be able to tap into that side of themselves where they're able to be soft.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with the both of you more. I I think this subject is really difficult to talk on, and often you have the wrong people speaking on it, right? Because of their fame, because of their power, they feel empowered enough to speak on a subject while they maybe are not purveying the best image themselves. And so it's almost like a confirmation bias of like, oh, I'm gonna treat women like shit and like they ain't shit. So then I can say this because I have money and I'm successful. When in reality, those people that are purveying the gender roles and how to treat women are not are not like should not be our base standard at all whatsoever. Whereas like you guys, you know, you're in loving relationships, I think are a good example of it. I can only talk about myself, right? You know, I never really liked the both Middle Eastern and Latino machismo attitude that luckily I didn't grow up in. My parents kind of broke that cycle. You know, I grew up with a relatively loving family, and I got to see, you know, what a positive relationship looks like in my parents. And so I'm grateful for that. But I also saw, you know, the communities that I was a part of and how they treated women and how maybe it was a little bit less respectful and more about, you know, power and control and gender roles being defined through, you know, obtaining love on the basis of providing, when as a man you should be a provider inherently in my eyes and a protector inherently in my eyes, but that shouldn't be gained through money or fame. It should be gained through like, what is your internal like moral and ethical code? Do you live by that? Do you have integrity? Like, does your wife respect you because of that? And therefore it's like she maybe submitting to her highest form of herself as a result of you being the best version of yourself, you know? And like, that's love in my eyes. And like, I've been in relationships in the past, and you know, I've had the pleasure of being in love, but I think like right now, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, like I'm just at a spot where, you know, the way that I want to show up for a girl in a relationship, a woman, right? Uh, I just have certain things I got to take care of. Like I have goals and objectives that, frankly, unless, you know, my potential partner, like wife, is aligned with at this point in time in my life, it becomes difficult because I want to show up for my partner in a way that I know I'm not there yet, financially, career goal wise, etc. And it's hard for some girls, at least like the type of females that I see myself with, envision myself with long term, you know, beautiful, intelligent, have their own, you know, passion, very emotionally aware, like caring, you know, like it's hard for me to put someone like that in a position where maybe they'd have to track that growth with me. And there's a possibility that I've just not seen that girl yet. And I I'm happy that at least in my mindset, I don't mind waiting. I don't mind being patient. I could get it if I want to, and that's not a cocky thing. I could, but we were also discussing this before. Like, how good do you feel, like all the time, just chasing that like sexual urge? It's not that great, man. Like, it's fun, like here and there, but it's not that great, and it doesn't really lead to. At least I can only talk on myself, the girl that I envision myself with. Like I won't be able to actualize that relationship. But yeah, women, it's women make the world go round 1000%. I think without women in this world, like men would be very depressed. Like
That's facts, dog. That's
yeah, like they're like the beacon of light, you know what I mean? So, and you guys said before, like lay your life down for a girl, like that's love right there. And I think most real men would be on that same tenet, not these like fucking deplorable, desperate dudes that be trapping, or you know,
fucking lames, bro.
lames, bro. You're a
These
bum.
are lames, dog. Like you really think about what a real man should be, and this is for my young men. A real man should, like you said, a real man should be able to provide and protect. But not only that, like that's grandpa's message, that's dad's message.
Yep.
Our message is a man should be able to be vulnerable, soft, fragile, be able to feel their own feelings because that's what a woman wants.
Yeah.
when your woman says, like, hey, I don't like when you do this, you don't do that anymore. Straight up. Like, it's not cool to do otherwise. And so, I think about that question a lot, not even on this record. Like, I think about that question a lot, like gender roles. It changes over time. But in today's age, I feel that women have a lot more power than they think. And, just to reiterate what I said, that a man, if a man really loves a woman, they're going to do anything that they can to garner that respect, love, and attention from that woman. And women need to know that. Women need to know that.
Absolutely.
I think there's something that I read once that it said, you don't gotta tell them how to treat you. They know how to treat you. When I'm speaking on like man's perspective. They know how to treat you and they will treat you the way they want to treat you. Like I remember when I met my girl, we were having fun for a couple of years and we started dating. And then she moved out there to Oregon with me. And I was like, you know what? On my way home, there's a flower shop. On my way home, there's a flower shop. And I was like, if I want to get these flowers, I will. If I don't, if I'm feeling too lazy to, like I won't. And there's a conscious decision to treat my girl the way I want to treat her. And so I really believe that I think I said earlier too, like a lot of the way I conduct myself is like, I want to make sure my girl is proud of her man. Like, I want to make sure my girl looks at me and is like, oh, yeah, that's my boyfriend. In the future, she's like, oh, yeah, that's my husband. That's what I want to make sure my girl thinks of me. So is there an objective to make sure my girl is pleased? Yes. Is there an objective to make sure my girl is happy? Yes. Like a lot of my objectives is to do it for my girl. And that's the reality. Like, however you want to put it, I want to make sure my girl goes to bed at night and is like, damn, my man is a superhero. My man really makes me feel fulfilled, makes me feel content, is committed to me, committed to no one else but his craft and me. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's huge. And I also do want to talk on like this aspect of relationships where I feel that if you make your partner the tenet of your happiness, it'll never work out. Whereas like the internal work that we were talking about all throughout this podcast, that like leads into the relationship where then now it's like you're just adding love on top of what all the self-love you have. Now you get to add more, right? It should never feel like I'm sad because my partner is not providing, or I'm sad because my partner's not loving me enough, or XYZ. It's like, no, okay, well, maybe there's reasons as to why you're sad. Explain those, like have that positive discussion on the matter and be able to like grow collectively. But you gotta water that relationship and really like let it grow. And I think the both of you guys are great examples of that. But yeah, gender roles, man, that's a tough one in today's age. And I got a questionable comment that we can get into briefly here, but just like, okay, how do we even get started on this? So I got a response about like LGBTQ community and the roles that men play and how we've become kind of like beta, for lack of a better terminology. I'm gonna get this one started because I do have like a more utilitarian approach to this, whereas I personally could care less about who you sleep with, what you do on your private time. That's your life. It does not matter to me. I will say though that in a legal sense, we're approaching kind of like a 1984 Big Brother, almost like Fahrenheit 451 question, where if you if you try and put into common law semantics that describe certain sects of society, SECT, not sex, right? Sects of society that do not purvey like the main standard deviation or even like the two standard deviations on either side. You're on the third deviation. You're a very small minority of society trying to dictate what is normalcy, and putting that into law is a dangerous thing. You see it in Canada right now where people are getting in trouble, professors, you know, individuals that are having to do like re-education courses because they refuse to abide by certain laws that may be inherently detrimental to the future of democracy. Because if you put in a common law like, oh, I need to speak on someone by XYZ pronouns, I don't mind. You tell me you want to be they, them, their, there, zim, fucking I'm him, I got you, you know? Like I'll call you that if that's what you want, right? But the moment that it gets written into law, becomes a dangerous catapult into a future where you could remove words like democracy, you could remove words like liberty, and as long as that's in common law, you could make that conclusion. You could jump from point A to point B, and that's dangerous in my opinion. And cancel culture is fucking dangerous. And I think any society that starts being negligent to change always started with the fact that they removed discourse. Without discourse, without disagreement, without a forum for us to talk about issues and minority thoughts purveying the majority opinion, is a dangerous world to be living in. And I think that's a problem right now. It has nothing to do with your sexuality. It has nothing to do with who you sleep with. I could care less who you fuck. I do not mind. That's on you. That's your life. But we're taking it too far. And I think a lot of people see that nowadays. Yeah. And like, as for beta men, I don't know what that means, to be quite honest. Like, what it means to be beta or alpha. Like, what the fuck does that mean? That's like such a lazy semantic to describe what is like diversity amongst men. But I appreciate that this guy puts it, the guy who put that comment in, he's a savage. He gets after in the gym. He's in a loving relationship. He's a fucking savage. But beta, man, it's a lazy semantic, because first off, like wolves don't even have alphas and betas. That was ruled out. That was like some scientists like put that out there and he was wrong. He actually, the remaining part of his life, he was like trying to say like that actually doesn't exist. But I think if we are to talk about men, we've become quite soft in certain regards. Like we're not upholding the tenets of manliness that we should be, like, you know, taking care of people, being cognizant of our financial and our, you know, health responsibilities. Like those are things that I think make a man an alpha to some degree, is like just like being like a light, being someone that other people can look up to.
Yeah, I'll echo when you say like whatever you want to do on your own time, that's on you. Like I'm under the belief that if a human is seen, if a human is loved, they're fulfilled. And if that's what gets you seen, if that's what gets you fulfilled and you feel loved, then why am I going to not support you? Like, why am I going to beat you down and be like, oh, you don't live the right way? Even though my faith doesn't agree with that, as human to human, because I'm under the assumption that maybe you don't even have the same faith as I do, as a human to human, I'm going to treat you with the utmost respect. Like, I'm going to treat you with the utmost kindness, the utmost, like, I'm like I said from the beginning, I'm just a servant and I'm proud to be. Whatever it is that you need, I'm willing. I have a good homie from undergrad. He's gay. There's been times where I'm like, hey, bro, bring your boy over. Like, bring your boy over. I want you to be happy. Like, if this means you're happy, I want you to be happy. If this means you feel loved, I want you to feel loved, bro. I'm not gonna pass no judgment towards you, even though my culture doesn't accept it, even though my faith doesn't accept it. Like human to human, I'm under the belief if that's what you want to do and you're happy and you feel complete, and because of this, you treat others with the utmost respect, then I'm all for it. Like, I'm not someone to pass judgment. I put this story on I reposted this on my story. It's like, even God promises, it said this in the scripture, even God promises to judge us on our last day and our last day only. So why am I going to pass this time while I'm on this earth judging you? Like, I shouldn't, I can't, and I won't. Because I can't, I won't. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's powerful. I think overall, when I think about this topic, respect governs all. Respect governs all in in every area, in every environment. I think about the schools that I've gone through in my life, the education that I've received throughout my life. Title I high school, undergrad at UC San Diego, my brother going to law school, the teachings and lessons and regrets my dad have passed down through his time in jail, in the military, in the Coast Guard, everything that I've learned In each of these schools, respect governs all. In my chapter right now, respect governs all. You have a superior, you respect him
Yeah.
or her. You take orders from him or her. It doesn't matter. Whatever they like, whatever they want, whatever they need, you respect him or her. In all of these schools, I've heard it from my dad, I've heard it from Leo and his experiences in law school, and I've heard it from myself within in everything that I've gone through, in every trial and tribulation. Respect governs all. And so my answer to these topics is that, bro, like at a certain point, like we're all humans. We all seek acceptance. Whatever Darren seeks acceptance from, that's Darren. Whatever Leo seeks acceptance from, that's him. And so you learn to just appreciate how every human experiences the same core emotions, but seeks acceptance from different things and different people. And so overall, that's all I can really say on this topic. That's all I can really say on this question. Respect governs all.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant way to put it, both of you guys. Like, that's a touchy subject to even try and approach, because we could end up like on some Instagram account, for saying
Oh,
the wrong
canceled
thing,
forever, bro.
you know. But like it's really just about love, man. Like, end of the day, whoever you love, however you love, that's fine. Just I will always take the utilitarian approach, where I just think like, and this is with everything in life, there's negative implications when we start writing things into law. And if we're not careful about ethical responsibilities, societies will have detrimental, reactions. So regardless of who you love and who you care for, I'm all here for it. I will be your number one fan, your number one supporter. But it's more a question of utility for me. This question is actually from your girlfriend, Leo. Said, how do you influence those around you to change if they haven't made any progress?
I think the reality is behind that is that you can't teach in proximity. Like, you really can't teach in proximity, because your excuse is their way out, and they will see every little inch of you. Like, if they're living with you, they will see every part of you. So I think that answers an easy way out. But what I would say on the contrary is that you have to live and let witness too. Like, you have to live and let witness. People have to see you every day, grind it out, and be like, and think to themselves, I really want to do that. I really want to live like that. I want to have a life like that. Because like we said way back in the beginning, people are uncomfortable in their own skin. People don't have confidence. Like, naturally, we live in a negative state. I believe that too. And so when you live and let witness, they'll be like, dang, I want to do that too.
Yeah.
Dang, that's inspiring. Oh, they got good relationships. I want good relationships too. Because naturally we compare, right? And if you can bridge that gap, if you can bridge that gap for them and be like, this is how you live, these are the habits you should have, then I really believe you can start to influence them. But when it comes down to it, I think it's hard to teach in proximity. Like, you'll be a doormat in your own home and a king amongst men. You'll be a doormat in your own home and a king amongst men.
Profound.
And I think there's truth to that, because it's hard to teach in proximity, because every little excuse you have, they'll have a way out with that.
I agree with with what Leo said. What Leo said on living and let witness, I think that's powerful. Because if you do that long enough, because at first people are like, oh, he's waking up early, like he's going to the gym, he's bettering himself, he's finding that time in the day to better himself and fill up his own cup. He's just like, oh, this is just, just a facade. Like, this is just another phase in his life or her life. But if you do it long enough, if you're really it and you really live it through and through for a lengthy period of time, people are going to take witness. They're going to really see that, hey, this person's legit. He or she is legit. And if you're able to endure these things in life that you overcome and that you go through, and you really endure the ringer of life, and you show how it's possible to get better and not bitter, through these experiences in life, then I think that's when people start to be influenced. Then that's when I think people are inspired and motivated. Because, Leo and I get a lot of messages of how we've inspired people to do X, Y, and Z. But it's not because we're chosen, it's not because we're special or extraordinary or different or unique. It's because every single day we decided that, hey, you know what? I have a life to live, and I'm going to make sure that every single day, all of my lost loved ones, my entire family that's still here on earth, is proud of me. We wake up every single day and look up to our God. We look up to our God and say, hey, I'm going to do whatever it takes to prove to you, my God, to my God, that I am grateful for this life. Every single day, moment by moment, I'm going to string enough moments throughout the 24-hour day and make sure that I'm grateful, and I prove it through action. That's all it is to it. And that's how you prove, and that's how you influence those around you. Because, like, I think about my dad. Like, my dad was raised in the system. And this dude is your typical doubting Thomas. For all my believers out there, he is your typical doubting Thomas. And I always keep in the back of my mind, I keep at the forefront of my mind that, hey, I'm going to live this life through and through every single day with my job, my crazy schedule, the cases, keeping me up at night, late nights, early mornings, all that. I'm going to prove to him that it's still possible to work on yourself. It's still possible to use movement and motion to medicate whatever you're feeling in that moment. And so you gain discipline, you gain control over your life through motion. You gain those attributes and those traits and those character traits by enduring. And that's how you influence. That's all. That's how you influence. You live it through and through every day, and you live and let witness.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, revolving back to motion, that seems to be the the repetitive subject here, that it's all encompassing of all this different things we've talked about. Is just seems to be motion. But for both of you, I couldn't agree more with the fact that setting that example, like setting the standard and then executing on the standard, I think that's what influences people. I remember, man, like I'm not really on TikTok as much as I used to be, but when I started to go viral in college, it was because people that I didn't know would listen to my live streams. And that's when I got most of my followers. They listen to me talk about life. And they just resonated with it for whatever odd reason. And it's because I kept showing up every day to talk about life that they just kept resonating with it. Granted, I'm not really on the platform as much anymore. I think that's for beneficial reasons, but I think in order for people to really feel inspired to change, it has to come from within. It can't just be, oh well, Brandon and Leo, they're just like tenets of success. And although I know Brandon said that he's not all of those things, and Leo's not all of those things, I would beg to differ. I think you guys are absolutely all of those things. But the reason you are all of those things is because you just continue to show up, right? And like that's the brilliant part about all of this is like we just keep showing up, and eventually people then see that it's possible to keep showing up given all the obstacles. And I think that's when they're, the influence that we unwittingly are passing on to others drives their change. And I hope that part of this bizarre experience that we call life has any value, any meaning, that it's like passing on a message to someone else who then passes it on to another person. Like crazy things, like for example, Copernicus, the heliocentric theory. That man died with a little journal talking about his theories on life because the Catholic Church was going to burn his ass for those ideologies. But someone went in to his place up in Amsterdam, I think it was Amsterdam, somewhere in the Netherlands, and found it. And it's become basically one of the main reasons that we've developed a reductionist theory of physics. Granted, now we're in a different season in physics where quantum theory governs over all of that, But the point being is like, it takes like a message to have meaning, to have been backed up through data, through like people got to see that you're legit, and then also understand that they need to add to it, and we're just all constantly propelling each other to influence the next person. And yeah, I'm grateful that, you know, like I get a lot of value out of speaking with you guys. I think you're influential people, genuinely. I think you're inspiring individuals, genuinely. I have other friends, like I could think right off the top of my head, like my boy Arvin. That man, he's a savage. He gets after it all the time. He's an inspiring individual. He conveys a good message. And it's the fact that he keeps showing up that makes me proud to be his friend. And I have other friends that also provide the same, you know, type of, I think, inspiring messages, but they're inspiring because they make you want to continue to show up, you know? So I can't talk about myself, but I can talk about you guys.
You're the man, bro. Hey, all the respect to you, dude. All the respect to my bro. And I think that's what the whole point of this is, right? Like the way you embody these qualities, the way you embody these beliefs, your core values, your core principles. The same with Brandon. Like I really hope that's what people even get out of this. It's like people that walk the talk, that people that can talk and then they can go ahead 3 days later and still walk that talk. And so it's, I mean, I already told you many times, like when I met you, when Brandon introduced you to me, it was just like, no, this is a solid homie right here. Like, I feel that energy. And like I said earlier, like energy doesn't lie and it's not on accident. And so I appreciate that to the maximum, bro.
Likewise, brother.
Yeah, like Leo said, Darren, I think that, you mentioned how, and we talked about this already, but you mentioned how your childhood was different from ours. It was different. But remember that pain is proportional. Whatever you've gone through in your life, it's going to hurt you and you only. Whatever I've gone through in my life is going to hurt me and me only. No pain is greater than, what I experience and what you experience. Like, it's all proportional.
Yeah.
And, always remember what my dad told me. And you're the epitome of this, Darren. Darren, you're the epitome of this. When my dad was locked up, he would always tell us over the phone on them jailhouse calls, them GTL Securus calls, bro. That's real. He would tell us, God forgives, but time doesn't.
Yeah.
You better get ready, stay ready, because opportunities come and go. And this is from the perspective from an individual that's locked up 23 hours a day. That's locked up 23 hours a day, where all they have is a book, a Bible, a fucking steel bunk. They ain't got shit, bro. They don't
Yeah.
have nothing but to reflect on all of their regrets throughout their life. That night that everything happened and they were arrested. That's all they have for the next X amount of years. And so when my dad tells me that, God forgives, but time doesn't. Darren, like I think about all the stories you've shared with us. I think about all the things that you've overcome, that you've shared with me. Don't ever forget that. Just because your childhood was different from ours, it doesn't mean anything. Just because Leo and I went through the ringer as kids, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean we're granted success. It doesn't mean we're gifted success. I believe in my God. I believe that he's going to work as hard as I work. And that just because I went through the ringer, it doesn't mean I'm guaranteed success. Like you hear these success stories. Everybody loves a success story.
Yep.
Everybody loves somebody coming straight from the dirt, straight from the project walls. Like everybody loves hearing and watching that story on Netflix. But just because you went through it, it doesn't guarantee success. And like, we've talked about throughout this podcast, it's the work. Every single day, the work, the shadow work in therapy, outside of therapy, in the relationship, outside of the relationship, during work, outside of work. It's every single moment of the day you're doing the work. You're fighting those insecurities, those flaws. As humans, those core emotions that you go through. And that's it. That's it, Darren. You know,
Yeah.
God will forgive, but time won't, and opportunities come and go.
Yeah, absolutely, man. The fact of the matter is, you know, everyone goes through different struggles, but I really like that part where it's like your God, whatever that may be, right, is working as hard as you work, And, two people could have the same trauma, but have fundamentally different results because they took different perspectives and different solutions and chose to live life differently, And often, this is kind of a more bizarre subject matter, but people like sociopaths and psychopaths, if you look at like the top Fortune 500 CEOs, almost all of them have like sociopathic and psychopathic behavioral patterns, which have led to their success. But you also have sociopaths and psychopaths leading serial killer numbers, right? And it's just like it was, whether it's a nature versus nurture question, which I think we talked about in the last podcast, if I'm not mistaken. It's more about, how did you weaponize this behavioral pattern? How did you weaponize your trauma? Okay, maybe that CEO exhibits sociopathic tendencies, but the company that they created saves the world and helps the world, right? Like that's the net positivity in it. How did you utilize that emotional pattern? How did you utilize it? Everything for me is utility. Like what's the utility in the motion? Like what's the utility of getting up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym to then post about it? Was it like to feel good about yourself, or is it like to help other people? And I've caught myself sometimes, posting things and then reflecting on it and being like, am I just doing this for myself? Does it make me feel better, or am I helping others? And then I have conversations with you guys and with other people that have felt, inspired and have sent messages to me saying that they're grateful. And like that for me is enough to continue the pattern, right? Continue taking those steps forward to help others, which in turn actually helps myself, So it's like, it's a positive feedback loop that was built on, maybe a crumbled emotional state that we've just put those bricks together. Instead of, selling bricks, we're laying bricks, like we're laying proper bricks up here.
Bro, only bums trap. Don't forget that.
Yeah. But yeah, no,
Yeah, that's real. Hey, that's real.